What is up, guys? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm Diego and today I'm back with another GAMSAT video. As I promised in my last videos, I said I'll be doing a series of GAMSAT videos to help you guys out in the lead up to your exams in September or next March. Anyway, today's video is going to be my 5 tips, basically the 5 things for you not to do in your GAMSAT preparation. So the 5 things you should pretty much avoid doing. So yeah, these are the things that I picked up on the way as to when I was preparing. As most of you will know on my channel, it took me 3 times to basically pass the GAMSAT. So these are things that eventually I found out I probably should not be doing. And so I hope this video is useful. As always, like, comment, subscribe. If you find it useful, then share. And yeah, let's get straight into it. Okay, so the first mistake you should definitely avoid doing for your GAMSAT preparation is cramming. Now, at some point throughout university, we all found ourselves cramming for an exam, putting in those night shifts, those early morning starts, those all-nighters basically, trying to cram, trying to run through syllabuses, trying to learn content so we could pass the exams basically. Now with GAMSAT, it's pretty difficult for you to cram, and the reason why is because most of the exams at university, especially in first and second year, are very much knowledge based. So they require you to basically regurgitate information. You'll be asked, a particular chemical pathway, list the steps, blah blah blah. But with GAMSAT, it's very much a reasoning test, and so there are particular skills that you need to develop. And the thing with skills is that with skills, it's very hard for you to cram the development of a skill. You can't really accelerate it. It's something that sort of happens naturally and it can take some time. Therefore, it's really hard for you to cram for the GAMSAT. So I'd be very conscious about that if I were you. There's people who typically take between 2 to 6 months to sit the exam. And the reason why is because of, yes, there's a lot of stuff you need to know. There's a lot of questions you need to prepare for. But most importantly, some of the things that take longer to develop are the actual skills. And you also need to remember that the GAMSAT tests different skills. So section 1 is your reasoning, which will be like your ability to read papers, to analyze articles and be able to, reply, respond to the questions based on your interpreting skills. With section 2, it's all about, how can you take a concept and basically, interpret it and then and sort of put out your own ideas in response to that topic. And then section 3, it's reasoning within the scientific sort of context. And so all of these skills are very different, and it's really hard for you to cram and develop them properly, in a 2-week period, 3-week period, or a month. So this is something that you need to bear in mind and that you probably don't want to do, right? So cramming, especially for the GAMSAT, isn't that good, and it's not because you can't learn content or doesn't mean you can't learn, specific concepts in biology, chemistry, physics. The thing is, there's a particular way you need to be thinking for the GAMSAT when you're answering the questions, and it's quite hard for you to be able to develop all of the skills for all 3 sections properly in a very short amount of time. Some can do it, and it's probably because they've already developed them in the past without knowing. And so when they go into the GAMSAT, they're already really good at interpreting graphs, at their math skills, writing essays. And so you need to bear this in mind. You need to be very sort of conscious of where your baseline is. So mistake number 1 you want to avoid is cramming. Do not cram for the GAMSAT. Okay, so mistake number 2. Mistake number 2, the thing you do not want to do also is to rely on memorization, or think that memorizing concepts, especially for section 3, is going to be enough, right? Like I said, the GAMSAT is not a knowledge-based test. It does require some knowledge, and the knowledge will help you in some cases, but it's not like your exams that you had at university. And I had to learn this the hard way, especially in my first time when I was sitting the exam. I pretty much I was trying to use flashcards, and I was trying to sort of go back to the approach I would have usually for my university exams. And when I went into the exam, it was completely different. None of the things that I really learned and memorized were pretty applicable or useful. And so first of all, it was a waste of time, and secondly, it didn't really help at all. So if you don't want to do that, don't think that memorizing, that knowing knowledge off by heart is going to be useful, is going to be the determining factor. It will help, like I said, on the particular questions that may require you to understand the context a bit better, and also it can help you, read the text faster, because you don't have to, reread and try and sort of figure out what they're saying, because you're already familiar with the language. So in those instances, it's useful, but do not rely on memorization. It will not help you. It's not a determining factor, and the exam is a reasoning-based test for a reason. So that's what I'd say. Do not do that. I would say avoid going down that route. You'll save yourself a lot of time, and hopefully, it'll take you less times than it took me to pass your exam. So that's mistake number 2 to avoid. Okay, so mistake number 3. So number 3 is basically you do not want to go down the route of not practicing enough questions. So you want to do practice questions. You don't want to focus the majority of your preparation in just reading, in memorizing things, in writing down stuff. What you really want to do is you want to know, how do you react in particular circumstances? How do you essentially respond to when you're reading through the GAMSAT style questions? And so what you want to do, in my case, what I was doing is that, of course, you can't just go into questions without having no sort of knowledge or no scientific knowledge. What you do want to do is you want to sort of balance it out initially, but maybe a 60-40 ratio of, doing questions, but also learning concepts as you go. But then as you approach exam periods, maybe you're 2 or 3 weeks down the line from your exams, you really want to up it. So you want to, maybe do a 75-25 split between practice questions and topping up your knowledge and topics. So that's something you want to do. There's going to be a lot of stuff that you'll sort of have to revise just in case it may come up. But the majority, in my experience, of the things that I have sort of revised, specific pathways and topics, I've not really seen them to be that useful. It's mostly for me in my case, it was mostly about being familiar with the question styles, with the timing, with the skill, required to answer those questions. And so I would strongly recommend very much favoring your preparation to be very heavy on practicing questions as opposed to learning content. My idea would be, my sort of advice would be to top up your knowledge in specific areas as you go along. So for example, if you're doing a question that you could see required a bit of physics knowledge and you literally had no idea at all, then it would probably be useful for you to read into it a bit, just so you know enough, so you can of course answer it. You can use a formula if you need to, but just so you're familiar with the topic and it's not something that as soon as you read a question you're like, oh, I can't answer this. In most cases, you're not going to need the knowledge to answer the question, but it can help. And so my advice would be top up your knowledge as you go, but very much focus on practicing questions. Practice questions, practice the Desanil questions, practice the ASA official questions, and any other questions that you can get your hands on that are sort of GAMSAT related. So that would be my third sort of tip, and my third thing for you to avoid doing. Do not do not structure your preparation plan to be all about memorizing, learning knowledge. Don't spend hours learning concepts on YouTube and spending only minutes on practicing questions. You want to split it favorably towards practicing questions. So that's what I would say. That's number 3, and let's go on to number 4. Okay, so the 4th thing I would say to avoid doing is paying large amounts of money on resources, on books, on courses, on all of that stuff. The GAMSAT is pretty expensive already. I think it's about £265 per sitting, which is very expensive, just the exam. And then you also have to purchase the official mock or past papers from ASA. So what I would advise is, is practice. Do obviously use the official papers initially. Find where you think really that you may have some weaknesses, that perhaps you may say, I don't think I can really top up this area with free resources. Maybe in that instance, it might be useful having a tutor to help in this particular area or a specific course in a particular area. But I would say, very much determine your baseline first using the official papers, using resources that are out there that are free. So you more or less know what your baseline is. And if you're definitely sure that you can't top up those areas on your own, that you may need a tutor, that you may need a particular paid resource, then yeah, maybe I'd say it might be worth it. But I'd just say be conscious about how much you're paying, because with the GAMSAT you can definitely end up spending more than £200. Okay, so the final thing that I would say to avoid, which is very, very, very important, especially today, given the whole COVID pandemic situation, lots of people are already very stressed out, and the GAMSAT can be very stressful. Financially, it's very hard. It can affect your sort of economic well-being because it's expensive. It can also affect your mental well-being, also the relationships you may have, your daily lifestyle, your workplace, how well you're performing at work. So what I would say is you want to avoid really sacrificing your mental health for this exam. There are going to be times where yes, you're going to be stressed. Yes, you may even feel a bit depressed or a bit sad because you feel like you're not getting the results you want. And believe me, I've sort of found myself going through a mixture of emotions, from happiness to sadness, from stress to disappointment, the whole sort of scope of feelings possible. So what I would say is, plan with good time for the exam. I would say be sustainable with the way you're studying, with the way you're also in terms of your expectations that you're placing on yourself. I found, especially for my last sitting, I sort of planned my study blocks to be very short, maybe 2 hours, 3 hours nearly every day, or skipping days, as opposed to when I was first doing it, I was doing 4 5 hour blocks, and I was just mentally fatigued, and I didn't really feel like I was in the zone. And the exam in itself is tough. The exam takes about 5 hours and a bit. It takes a full day for you to you have to go to a test center. There's 3 sections. There's a lot of stress. So what you want to do, you want to get to the exam center as mentally fresh as possible. So remember, that's the end goal. That's where you need to be able to perform. Everything before that is just preparation, and that's it. You need to perform on the day. And so study, prepare well, be consistent, but also take care of your mental health. So eat properly, drink properly, exercise properly, do things that add value to your life, that add happiness to your life. So it all feels a bit more balanced out, and you're also not getting too stressed. So yes, prepare well for the exam, but that does not mean that you have to prepare well. In order to prepare well, it does not mean that you have to sacrifice your well-being, your health. So just bear that in mind. Be careful about the way you're planning your study schedule. Remember, you are the priority above the exam. The exam is something that you're sort of aiming towards, but you need yourself. You need to take care of yourself so that you can actually get to the exam and do well. And also on the day as well, you want to be positive. You want to just think about it, take it bit by bit. When I was doing the exam, I was like, let me get through section 1. I didn't even want to think about section 3 because I was like, it was so stressful just to think about the fact that it was a whole day that I had to sit there. So just, practice breaking it down bit by bit on the exam day. Just say, section 1, let me get through this. Section 2, you'll get through that. And then you'll find that it's lunch, and then there's only section 3 left. And also in the lead up to the exam as well, do practice questions, do practice the mocks, but leave some days out as well for you to, before the exam, do your last set of questions maybe 2 or 3 days, especially a full mock. If you're doing a full mock, at home it might be 4 to 5 hours. You know, you don't want to do that too close to your exam because you're going to burn out, and then when you go to the exam, you just don't want to do anything related. You just sort of feel like you're tired and you're fatigued. So like I said, with the GAMSAT, you need to develop the skill organically over time. So don't think that because you're going to cram the last 2 or 3 days, it's going to have a massive impact for the best. It actually might work against you. So that's what I would say. The fifth thing to avoid, my final point of advice that I would say to avoid doing, is sacrificing your mental health. Be very vigilant in the way you're planning. Be very careful. Remember that you need to take care of yourself to get to that point. So study hard, but also take care of yourself. Exercise, eat well, do things that add value and add happiness to your life. So yeah, that's my final point. Alright guys, so those are my 5 things that I would say to avoid doing in the lead up to your GAMSAT preparation. If you have any questions, as always, leave them in the comment box below. If you like this video, subscribe, share. I appreciate the support and I hope this genuinely helps you. The GAMSAT is a tough exam, but it doesn't mean you can't do it. It doesn't mean that with good preparation that you can't achieve it. So just carry on. There's not that much left with the September test date and also March as well. Keep positive, do it, and if you've got any questions, any video types or video topics that you'd want me to cover, leave them in the comment section below. I'm always happy to do them, and or leave a question. I'm always happy to get back to you. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Until next time, bye bye. It's Diego, bye.